Half the cars on the road today will never see 150,000 miles. They get traded in, they break down, or they rot in a driveway waiting for a repair nobody wants to pay for. But I've had cars roll past 500,000 miles without ever cracking the engine open. And no, it wasn't luck, and it wasn't some special vehicle. It was a handful of small habits that cost almost nothing. I'm Ted. I've spent most of my life under the hood of other people's cars in my garage, and I'll tell you something the dealership won't. The stuff that actually kills engines and transmissions isn't age. It's not even mileage. It's neglect that's cheap to prevent and brutally expensive to ignore. So today I'm giving you 8 habits that push a car past 500,000 miles and 5 mistakes that quietly send them to the junkyard early. Stick around for mistake number 3 because it's the one I see wreck more transmissions than anything else. Let's get into it. Habit number 1, the oil change nobody wants to hear about. Your owner's manual probably tells you to change your engine oil every 7,000 to 10,000 miles, and on paper, in a lab, under perfect conditions, that's fine. But you don't drive in a lab. You sit in traffic. You take short trips where the engine barely warms up. You drive in summer heat or winter cold. Real driving is hard on motor oil, and oil is the only thing standing between your metal parts and a very bad day. Here's what I tell every customer at the garage. Fresh oil every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, depending on how you drive. If you're in a hot climate like Arizona or Texas, a thicker oil like a 5W30 handles the desert heat better. If you're up in Minnesota or Canada dealing with brutal cold, a thinner winter oil like a 0W20 flows faster on a freezing startup, so your engine isn't running dry those first few seconds. And every single time you change the oil filter too. A dirty filter just recirculates the junk your fresh oil is supposed to keep out. This one habit alone prevents engine sludge, timing chain wear, and scored bearings better than anything else you can do, and it costs less than a couple of coffees a month. Habit number 2. Transmission fluid is not lifetime fluid. Somewhere along the way, the auto industry started calling transmission fluid lifetime fluid, and drivers believed it. The problem is, in the real world, lifetime tends to mean until the warranty runs out, not until your car hits 300,000 miles. Heat is the enemy inside an automatic transmission. That transmission runs hot, and the hotter the fluid gets, the faster it breaks down. Once it breaks down, it stops protecting the clutches and seals inside, and that's when you get slipping, jerking, and that ugly refusal to shift smoothly. By the time you feel it, the damage is usually done. So replace that transmission fluid every 30,000 to 50,000 miles, no matter what the manual claims. Fresh, red fluid keeps everything cool and shifting clean. And if you tow a trailer, or you're in stop-and-go traffic all day, or you live somewhere hot, change it even sooner. One warning, though. If your transmission has been neglected for a really long time, don't run a full power flush on it. Do slow drain and fills instead. Shocking an old, dirty transmission with a hard flush can do more harm than good. A fluid change is cheap insurance against a rebuild that can run you $3,000 to $5,000. Habit number 3. Check your engine mounts before they cost you a fortune. Your engine is supposed to sit still under the hood. It shouldn't shake like it's trying to climb out of the car. When engine mounts wear out, everybody blames rough idle or a bad spark plug, but the real cost is what worn mounts do to everything around them. A loose engine yanks on rubber hoses, cracks the exhaust flex pipe, stresses your axles, and throws your drivetrain out of alignment. A motor mount is a cheap part. The damage it causes when you ignore it is not. Here's a test you can do right now in your own driveway. Start the car, keep your foot firmly on the brake pedal, and shift from park into drive. Watch the engine and feel the cabin. If it bucks hard, if the whole car shudders, if the steering wheel shakes more than it should, your mounts are probably worn. Do the same thing shifting into reverse. Too much engine movement either way is your red flag. Catch it early and you replace one small part. Ignore it and you're paying for a chain reaction under the hood. Now here's one almost nobody knows about, and it's my favorite of the whole list. Habit number 4. Park with the handbrake first. When you throw your car into park on a hill, one tiny metal part inside your transmission is holding the entire weight of your vehicle. It's called the parking pawl, and it was never meant to carry that load by itself. Do it for years, and that little metal part wears out. When it fails, you're looking at a repair bill that can run $900 to $1,500. The fix takes 3 seconds. Come to a complete stop, pull the handbrake first, let the car settle onto it, then shift into park. Now the parking brake is holding the weight, not that fragile little pawl inside your transmission. It works on every car, automatic, CVT, even an electric vehicle. I know it feels like a small thing, but small things are exactly what separate a car that dies at 150,000 miles from one that keeps going well past 200,000. Habit number 5. Feed your engine good fuel and good spark. Cheap gas and cheap spark plugs are a slow-motion way to age an engine. You won't notice it the first tank or the first month, but your fuel injectors, your intake valves, and your combustion chambers feel every drop of low-quality gasoline and every weak spark. Modern engines, especially the direct injection ones, spray fuel at incredible pressure, and even tiny carbon deposits mess up that spray pattern. That carbon steals your power, hurts your fuel economy, and shortens the life of expensive parts. So run a good top-tier gasoline when you can and use a quality fuel injector cleaner every few thousand miles. It's a few dollars that keeps your fuel system sharp. Same goes for spark plugs. A cheap plug that's barely firing forces your ignition coil to work overtime and can even overload your catalytic converter, which is one of the priciest things under your car. I had a customer ignore weak spark plugs for 40,000 miles and turn a $60 plug job into a nearly $1,000 coil pack repair. Stick to the iridium plugs your engine was designed for and change them on schedule. Cheap plugs always cost you more later. That's the halfway mark. If any of this is saving you money or headaches, do me one favor and hit that subscribe button. I put out this kind of stuff every week, straight from the garage. Now let's keep going because the next one runs hotter than most people realize. Habit number 6. The quarter tank rule that saves your fuel pump. The bottom of your fuel tank is the worst place for your fuel pump to live. In a lot of cars, that electric pump is actually cooled by the gasoline around it. When you constantly run down near empty, the pump loses that cooling, it runs hotter, and it wears out faster. There's another problem too. All the sediment and gunk in your gas tank settles at the bottom. Run it near empty all the time, and you're feeding that debris straight into your fuel system, clogging the injectors and choking performance. So make it a habit to refuel around a quarter tank instead of riding it down to the fumes. It keeps your pump cool, keeps the junk settled where it belongs, and protects a part that can cost $600 to $1,200 to replace. This habit costs you absolutely nothing. It's just a change in when you pull into the gas station. Habit number 7. Clean your battery grounds. This one's dirt cheap and almost nobody does it. Your entire electrical system runs through a few cables and ground connections bolted to the engine block and chassis. When those grounds get corroded, your car starts throwing weird problems that look exactly like expensive failures. Phantom sensor errors, computer glitches, even fake transmission symptoms. I've watched people replace a $200 sensor, then a $600 alternator, chasing a gremlin that turned out to be a crusty $12 ground cable. Pop your hood and look at the battery terminals. If you see white powder, loose clamps, or frayed ground straps, clean them up with a wire brush, tighten them down, and put a little dielectric grease on there to keep the corrosion away. Do it every oil change. A clean ground keeps your voltage stable and can add years to your alternator and starter. Habit number 8. The coolant truth most drivers miss. When an engine overheats, people act like it came out of nowhere. It almost never does. It's usually a cooling system that's been quietly falling apart for months. Everybody trusts that 100,000-mile coolant label. But coolant slowly turns acidic as it ages. It loses the additives that stop corrosion, and then it starts eating your aluminum parts from the inside. You can check it yourself. Grab a small sample of coolant from the radiator. Healthy coolant looks bright and clear. If it's brown, rusty, or full of gritty bits floating around, it's overdue. While you're down there, take a quick look under the radiator, the water pump, and the hose clamps for any colored residue. A small coolant leak caught early is a cheap fix. A leak you ignore can warp a cylinder head, and that's a bill that hurts. Flush and refill the coolant every 30,000 to 50,000 miles, and you stay ahead of the whole problem. All right, those are the 8 habits. Now let's flip it around, because knowing what to do is only half the game. Here are 5 mistakes I see drivers make every week that quietly kill good cars. Mistake number 1. Topping off the tank after the pump clicks. That gas pump clicks off for a reason. When you squeeze in a little extra to make it a round number, that liquid fuel floods a part of your emission system, the charcoal canister, that was only ever meant to handle vapor. Once it gets soaked, it starts breaking apart, and now you've got rough idling, hard starts, a fuel smell, and a check engine light. Worst part, automakers usually won't cover it under warranty because they call it driver error. When you hear that first click at the pump, just stop. Mistake number 2. Braking hard at the last second. A lot of people drive right up to a red light and stomp the brakes. Every time you do that, you're baking your brake rotors and pads with heat, and heat is what warps rotors and wears pads out early. The fix is easy, and it's free. Lift off the gas 5 to 10 seconds before you need to stop, and let the car slow itself down. Your brakes stay cooler, they last longer, and you'll actually feel the car settle instead of nosediving into every stop. Hybrids like the Toyota Prius do a version of this automatically, and it's a big reason their brakes last so long. Mistake number 3. Long, cold idling. This is the big one I warned you about at the start. For years, people believed you should let a cold engine idle for 5 or 10 minutes before driving. That made sense for carbureted cars built in the 80s. It's the wrong move today. A long, cold idle actually washes raw fuel down your cylinder walls, thins out your oil, and speeds up wear. The smart way is to give it 20 to 30 seconds after startup, just long enough for the oil pressure to come up. Then drive gently. Your engine actually warms up faster under a light load than sitting still in the driveway, which means less wear, not more. Break the old habit. Warm up briefly, then ease into your drive. Mistake number 4. Ignoring the warning lights on your dashboard. I can't tell you how many cars roll into the garage with a check engine light that's been on for 6 months. Here's what most drivers don't understand. That little light isn't the problem. It's an early warning about a problem that's still cheap to fix. A loose gas cap, a failing oxygen sensor, a small misfire. These are $20 and $30 problems when you catch them on day 1. Ignore that light for 6 months, and a tiny misfire turns into a melted catalytic converter or a scored cylinder, and now you're staring at a 4-figure repair. When a light comes on, get the code red. Most auto parts stores will scan it for free. Knowing is cheap. Guessing is what destroys engines. Mistake number 5. Buying the cheapest spark plugs and fluids you can find. I'll say it plainly. The bargain bin is where good engines go to age early. A cheap plug, a cheap oil, a cheap coolant, they all technically work, right up until they don't. And when they fail, they take expensive parts down with them. The catalytic converter, the coil packs, the cylinder head. You're not saving money by going cheap on the small stuff. You're just moving the bill down the road and making it bigger. Spend a little more on the parts that protect the expensive ones. Your wallet will thank you at 300,000 miles. And there you have it. 8 habits that push ordinary cars into the 500,000-mile club, and 5 mistakes that quietly kill them early. None of this is complicated, and none of it is expensive. It's just the difference between a car that owns you and a car you actually own outright, long after the payments are gone. Now, I threw a lot of numbers at you today. Every 3,000 miles for oil, 30 to 50 for transmission fluid and coolant, the whole schedule. Nobody remembers all that off the top of their head, so I did the work for you. Everything in this video, every interval, every product actually worth buying, and the ones that are a flat-out waste of money, I put into one simple guide called the Car Savings Manual. It's the exact checklist I'd hand my own kid the day they bought their first car. You'll find it as the first link down in the description, and it costs less than a single oil change. Grab it, stick the schedule on your fridge, and your car will outlive your car payment by a decade. I'm Ted. Take care of your car, and it'll take care of you. See you in the next one.